In today's video, I'm going to be going through some tips and tricks that I have learned over the last couple of months of playing DayZ as a solo. Usually I play DayZ in a trio or duo group, but recently I've been playing DayZ just by myself, and I've learned a lot of tips in how to survive, how to succeed in PvP situations, just overall how to act more stealthy when it comes to surviving as a solo in DayZ. One of the things that I always do in DayZ, and I think a lot of people do it as well, but it's something that I always practice, is wearing dark clothing. As you can see, I'm wearing pretty much a green and black clothing, as dark as I can get. Usually I'll either run all black or I can go a mixture of black and green or use some greys, but I always try and go with colors that don't stand out. Especially as a solo player, you don't want to be running around with raincoats on that are bright yellow, bright red, green, whatever. You know, running through a woodland or something like that, a group of players see you and, you know, take you out. One of the things that I've learned while playing as a solo is that you need to be more stealthy, and clothing plays a big part in how stealthy you are. So what I always try to do, dark clothing. I always try and avoid any bright clothing if possible. I know when you spawn in, it can be difficult to try and find dark clothing off the rip, but especially the more you go up north, if you find more dark clothing, the further up north you get, you're better off running that type of combination of clothing. It has worked for me really well recently. I wore an all black outfit, ended up going on a 14 kill streak while playing as a solo. I think it was the longest kill streak I've ever gone on, and it was really nice to be able to run around in PvP like that. Another thing that I always try and run is small and dark colored backpacks. So as you can see, I'm running the new sling bags are in. This one's the army pouch. Again, you don't want running around with a big orange or yellow dry bag on, or a mountain backpack on that's red or green. It really does stand out. I've noticed it quite a lot that you might be in a town, searching it, can't see anybody around, and then out of the corner of your eye, you'll spot a player running along, and the only reason you've spotted them is because you can see this big orange or red backpack that they're wearing. It really does stand out. Now, I know there can be reasons for wearing a big backpack like that. Maybe you're doing some looting, maybe you're gathering supplies for base building or whatever. That's understandable. Most of the time, especially if you are building a base, it's going to be unavoidable. You're going to have to wear a big backpack at some stage. But if you can avoid it, I recommend wearing at least a darker colored backpack, like the hunting backpack or the other military backpacks that are in the game that are camo colored. And if you're on an official server or you're on a community server that has stamina, you know, the bigger your backpack is and the more gear you have in it, the less stamina you're going to have. Whereas you run one of these sling bags, stamina is going to be considerably more because you're not carrying as much stuff. So that's also something to keep an eye on. So that kind of goes along with the clothing. If you can get dark clothing and a either kind of darker colored or small backpack, it's going to work to your benefit. Another one that's been working for me is how I traverse the map. So a lot of people will, you know, go into every town, loot every town to find some stuff. They'll run along the roadsides, and that's how sometimes they can get caught out. I usually do run along roadsides or pretty near them in bushes or whatever. But if you're in a town, or if you're running through a town and you don't necessarily need to loot that area, go around the outskirts of that town in bushes, in tree lines, and it usually will make you a bit safer and a bit less visible to other players around. I've been doing this for a while, and sometimes it can actually work out to your benefit, because if you're on the outskirts of a town looking in and you see people in the town, then you technically should have the upper hand if you do get into a gunfight with them, because you are able to kind of stalk them and watch their movement and see what they're actually up to in that town. And it has worked out to me. It has gotten me killed in certain situations as well, but I do think it is more safe than running in the center of town and just running out the other side and not looting it. You're definitely better off running around the outskirts of certain towns if you've no need to be in them. The next one is PvP. Now, I think I might PvP a little bit different to most people. My PvP style is a lot more slower paced. I like being able to kind of take time on what I'm doing, especially if I'm running solo. I'm usually running a sniper and some type of rifle or SMG as my secondary. So usually I'll try snipe as much as I can. And that usually requires me to be more slower paced in my PvP. If I can, I'll usually try and watch the enemy player that I'm going to engage in PvP in. If I'm a bit of a distance away, I can usually kind of, you know, track them and keep an eye on them until I'm in the perfect situation where I can get a good clear shot. Obviously, in some circumstances, slower paced PvP isn't going to work if you're in a close quarters environment. Sometimes fast paced is the only answer, but I try and slow down my PvP as best I can in certain areas. And again, that PvP style one, it really does depend on what way you PvP in the game. The next two I think are going to be kind of obvious. I don't use vehicles of any type whatsoever on the server. Not because they're unstable, but because I personally think driving in a vehicle, especially on a populated server, you're more than likely going to die if you get shot at. You have no real way of evading the enemy unless you speed up or are able to swerve. But if you swerve, then sometimes the car can lose control and you can crash and die that way. So it's just not the safest way to travel the map. I would always rather travel by foot instead of traveling by a car, even though traveling by foot can sometimes be quite tedious, but I think it's always better and safer to do so. And also, cars are very loud. You're going to be heard if you drive through a town with a car, and like I said, the chances of you getting shot are going to be pretty high, and you've pretty much no real way of defending yourself against being shot at, unless you can get out of the car incredibly quick and try and run into a building or something to take cover. The same goes for bases. Running as a solo, I find it pretty much pointless to have a base. Obviously, if you're in a group, you have multiple people, so there could be people on at different times throughout your day of playing, and you have more chance of protecting your base in case of a raid. But as a solo, you log off for the night. There's no way of knowing if your base will be there in the morning. Again, bases are they're kind of, base building in DayZ is a bit, I don't know, a bit crappy, you could kind of say. They're very easily raidable, and it's just not worth the effort of building one up, spending, an entire day or two building one up just for it to be raided in, a matter of hours or less. The best way to store loot, if you have some extra loot that you don't want to carry around on you, is just to create a stash. Either, make a wooden crate, find a dry bag, and just bury your stash somewhere. Take a screenshot of the location of where you buried your stash, and then you're good to go. And that is pretty much all the tips I have at the moment for playing as a solo. Again, they're very basic. It's not very complicated stuff, but I just wanted to make this video. I've been wanting to make it for a while, share my thoughts since I've been playing DayZ as a solo for the last couple of weeks. Pretty much since 1.23 came out, I've been playing DayZ nearly daily and pretty much playing it as a solo all of those days, and it's been fun. It really has been fun. It's been a challenge, but there's 1,000,001 different ways to play this game. There is no right way or there is no wrong way to play this game, but these are just some of my tips that I've learned that might help some of you out there that are maybe wanting to pick DayZ up and you don't have any friends to play it with and are going to be playing it solo. At least you have some advice on how to accomplish that. But that is it for this video. If you have any other tips or tricks that you've learned as playing as a solo, be sure to leave me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear them. And let me know your thoughts on this video yourself. If you have any tips or tricks that you think I could use better, I'm certainly down to hear them as well. I'm always open to hearing new ideas. And yeah, that is pretty much it for this video. So I hope you enjoyed, and I should catch you guys in the next one. So peace out for now.